remember a couple months ago, we were having a conversation about life and Yabacon, of course. And you mentioned that you started your first company at a very young age. I won't disclose.
No, you can tell them.
Really?
Yeah, tell them.
17, guys. Yep. Do the math. And I was just thinking, like, how did that experience shape you to the person you are today?
Yeah, so I think when you're young, you have time.
Yeah.
There's this quote about entrepreneurship that really, that I found really transformative. And it is essentially that, you know, with entrepreneurship, you spend most of your life, or you spend a couple of years the way most men don't, so that you can spend the rest of your life the way most men can't. And I feel that is so foundational when you talk about entrepreneurship, because entrepreneurship involves a lot of sacrifice, and when you're young there's less pressure and you're able to make some of those sacrifices. And this is not saying that, you know, if maybe you're a little older you shouldn't consider it, but I think it's just better to start early. You have time, you can make mistakes, you can learn, you can grow. And yeah, I'm really happy I started when I did. And it's fantastic. It's been a fantastic experience.
You talk about sacrifices. Can you share some of the sacrifices you've made?
Yeah, I think one that comes to mind is not completing my education. I pursued a diploma in software engineering from Aptech. You know, and it was good. It was a good experience. I learned a lot. As part of the program, I was supposed to. They have this partnership with Middlesex. They have campuses in, I think, UK, Malta, Mauritius, Dubai. You know, and a lot of students were attracted to that program, you know, because of the fact that when you're done, you get to join the final year students and you come out with a BSc. So that was the plan initially. But, you know, I got in and I started to learn all these practical skills. And I said, you know what? I can actually make some good money in tech. And I wasn't interested in going any longer. You know, my parents fought me, you know, my family, everyone was literally against it. But, you know, I stuck to my guns and I have no regrets, right? Yeah, but that was a sacrifice. Another thing too is, you know, as a young founder, you're building a brand, you're building solutions, building a company. It costs a lot of money, right? So at the start, it's difficult to get that kind of support you need financially. So a lot of that has to come out of your own pockets, right? So that might mean, as a person, having to forgo some certain things. You know, there's a certain kind of lifestyle, you know, people want to live when they're young, but you know, you have this goal, right? You know what you're chasing, so you have to sometimes make those sacrifices for the purpose of that mission, that vision, and that's also something that I've had to do.
Do you see yourself as a natural born leader? Are you a natural born leader? Because of all, you started your company at a very young age, obviously, and you know, over the years you've had companies that you had to work with, and most of them you were in a leadership position. So do you see yourself as a natural born leader, or was it something you had to grow into?
So I think there's this. I think people are born with leadership qualities.
Really?
Yes, people are born with leadership qualities. Okay. But I don't think anyone is born a leader. You know, there's this open argument about whether leaders are born or made. I don't think anyone is born a leader. You can have qualities based on your upbringing and education that make you more disposed to being a good leader, but ultimately you have to, it's something you grow into, right? And yes, I think my background, my education, maybe even some genetic factors might have given me some of those qualities. But in terms of actually being a leader, that is something that over time you get better at. I'll give you an example. Earlier in my career, in the leadership positions that I found myself in, I had to lead people who were essentially just starting out. So they were looking up to me, right? Now that comes with its own set of challenges, but it's a completely different ball game when you're having to lead people who are experienced, people who are seasoned professionals, and that is something that I had to do in the last place where I worked, and it was like a whole new experience for me. I think I really grew during that time because two things I want to mention that I found so important. One is to focus on the people and not the job. There are so many times we're trying to get things done and it was dragging for so many reasons. There's a lot of building a team is hard, and one of the things I learned was to focus on the people and not the work. And it might sound counterintuitive, but it's so important because these are people, they have lives, they have experiences that make them who they are. And all of that influences the quality of their work. So when you get to know someone as an individual, right?
Yeah.
It as a leader, you're in a better position to help them help you succeed, right? For example, I had some colleagues who, when I started, they said, Jesse, we're never working on a weekend. Mm-hmm. And I'm not saying that, I'm not encouraging working during weekends. I mean, work-life balance, that's fantastic, it's great. But, sometimes when you're working in a high-paced environment, deadlines are looming in. You have to make some sacrifices. I'm using that word a lot today.
Yes.
So, that happens, and then eventually, over time, when I built those relationships, I had these same people saying, "See, Jesse, it's because of you. Yeah. It's because of you. Don't worry, I'll get it done." So that's just one example, right? But when you focus on the people, you give them a good environment where they can thrive, then it always has a positive impact on their work, right? And people feel they can come to you with things that are weighing on them. Someone joins a stand-up meeting in the morning and the person, by the way he's responding to the questions, you can tell there's something wrong. And you just showing that interest in that person, it can be transformative for that person, right? So that's one thing. Another thing too is you have to pick your battles. That's one thing I learned. So when you're experienced, I have about 8 years experience. So when you feel your experience, a lot of people tend to, you've made certain mistakes, right? So you know that there is a good way or a better way to do certain things. Now, when you're working with people who are also experienced, maybe not as experienced as you, they also have ideas. So how do you find the balance between, I know what is best and I want to make you feel included? That is something that I had to figure out working with or leading experienced teams, because if you're always pointing that this is where we need to go, I don't know if you've heard this saying that if you're leading and no one is following, then all you're doing is taking a stroll, right? So you have so many organizations where people are just essentially, they're just strolling, right? And they're not really leading, and that's not the kind of person I wanted to be, So I was talking with some of my mentors about some of the challenges I was facing, and that's something that's very important for everybody, having people who are more experienced that you can look up to. So I was talking to them, and one thing that Olusegun, so he was someone who was very influential, the last place where I worked, and he told me, you have to pick your battles. You have to pick your battles. There are some things that are absolutely critical. If it's not done this way, then everything, there would be serious consequences. Those things you can stamp your authority on. But there are things where yes, there's the best way to do it, but if it's done the other way, it still works, right? So give these people the opportunity to feel included. What will most likely happen is, in the course of trying to implement that, they will realize that your way is better. And then the next time when a decision comes up, maybe you ask them, what do you think we should do? And then they tell you what they have in mind, and then they would probably ask, well, what do you think, right? So that's pretty much some of the things I picked up along the way.
That's great.
Yeah, thank you.
So what motivates you? I know you made lots of sacrifices to get to where you are now, and I think for you to be in the position that you are now, you need to be motivated by something bigger than yourself, obviously. So let's know what that is. What motivates you? What keeps you in the mood to constantly develop yourself, to grow, to build, and to take people along with you?
I think I've always had this incredible hunger to be successful, right? I define success not by how much money a person has made, but by the amount of impact that a person has had in another person's life or in the lives of people. So I want to make impact, right? And that's not an easy thing to do. And some people say that's generic, right? But true impact, it's not generic. When you have encounters with someone and then that triggers something in you and it sets you on a different path, that is, and it's happened to me, right? It's happened to me. So to be able to give that to a person or to as many people as possible, that is something that drives me. And in the organizations I've set up, they are all impact-driven organizations. Yes, some of them are profit-oriented, but even the things we do, we want to be able to create positive impact in the lives of people, in the economy. That's just something that I feel very strongly about, and yeah, I think that's what drives me.
Okay, so we had our meetup, I think in May, yeah? And we had to talk to people around, and most of them were trying to figure out what Yabacon is about. Most people were trying to, they thought Yabacon was related to Yabatech. And I was trying to explain to them that they're two different things, like Yabacon is one entity on its own, and Yabatech is totally different. So for people that are just getting to know what Yabacon is, can you just explain to them, layman's terms, like what is Yabacon, what is it about? Is it like a company? Is it an NGO? Is it a school?
Okay.
Yeah, so what's Yabacon? And how did you come about the name Yabacon? What influenced that choice, Yabacon? Yeah. Okay,
so those are a lot of questions, right? I hope I can remember all of them. Let's start with the name.
Yes.
Right, so Yaba is very rich when it comes to tech history. Started right around 2011, where you had Web Innovation Hub. They had some partners, and they started to incubate startups around. And then I think it really started to accelerate when you had the likes of Tijani Bosu and CC Hub. They incubated a lot of startups. You had startups like Budget, right? I think they were one of the first to really benefit from that CC Hub program. you have so many other well-known companies. You have Conga and, you know, Paystack, and so many others that had, that benefited from that budding tech community in Yaba. And then, of course, Zuckerberg, when he came around August of 2016 too. So that, I think that was really what sparked the whole Yabacon Valley, you know, would I say annotation, or well, I don't even know what to call it, but yeah. So Yabacon essentially takes inspiration from that. What led to starting the tech community? And Yabacon is a tech community, that is what it is. But where it differs from other tech communities is in the fact that when you look at tech communities, they are usually niche. What do I mean by that? There are tech communities for maybe people doing graphic design. There are tech communities for people who are learning how to code. You know, there are tech communities for product managers. There are tech communities for startups. And when you go into those things I mentioned, you know, those are kind of broad. There are still very niche tech communities. For example, if we're talking about people coding, you have tech communities for people doing PHP. You have tech communities for people doing JavaScript, you know. And that is fantastic, right? Because you need to find where you belong, right? However, I noticed that there wasn't really a tech community that represented technology as a whole, right? So all these things I've mentioned, there is one thing that is like blood that connects everybody, and that is the technology. And I noticed that there wasn't really a community that connected everybody, that was essentially the face for technology in Africa. And I said, you know what, there is a chance to do something here and, you know, create real impact. So that was what led to starting to think about the idea of Yabacon, and the name Yabacon. People tend to focus on the Yaba a lot, but you know, it is the fact that it takes inspiration from what happened in the early 2010s in Yaba. And you know, that movement, those initial set of startups that were successful, they sparked a movement. Now you have so many people that want to actually go into tech, want to build things, create impact. And there's so many, and we have so many success stories now because of what happened back then, right? So when you look at what Yabacon aims to accomplish, right, you have so many people who are looking at creating local solutions. So you hear so many people saying they are building for Africa. They are trying to create solutions for African problems, and that's fantastic. But I believe that Africa can build solutions for the world. When it comes to technology, I feel like, and this is my personal opinion, people are free to disagree or to, you know, contest it, but I feel like Africa is catching up. It's always catching up, right? Look at AI, for example. You have Asia, Europe, the US, they are pushing the boundaries of what AI can do. They are trying to find that new frontier, right? And I feel like Africa is just playing catch up. How many global solutions, global tech solutions do you know that are African?
Not many.
I can't think of any. You know, I like what these guys, I think it's the name will come to me. The name will come to me, but there's these guys that Uber.
Shotless?
No, not Shotless. I can't remember the name, but maybe when the video comes out, I'll drop it in the comment section. But you know, I love what they are doing because I think in terms of expansion, they are really trying to expand. But when you look at some of the biggest brands that we have, tech brands, you look at guys like Meta, you know, you look at Apple and all that it's doing, you look at Microsoft even. I believe that African companies can grow to that level where they have global presence. So Yabacon was created to actually drive that change. And to the point I was trying to make earlier, that's a big thing, what we are trying to do. But when you look at what that movement that happened back in 2010, when you look at how it really inspired a lot of people to start doing their own thing, and we have so many success stories. So that is why we named this community after Yaba, right? So that is it, because we are also trying to drive change, massive change. I want a situation whereby 10, 15, 20 years from now, we have multinational companies that are African, right? So building tech solutions for the world, not just Africa. And when you look at the number of Nigerians that are in diaspora, you see that the world is, borders are becoming more and more loose every day, right? You have so many Nigerians all over the world. You have Nigerians in the US, you have Nigerians in different parts of Europe, so really the market is ripe for this kind of global African solutions. And Yabacon wants to be that hub that inspires a lot of people to innovate towards that direction. And we have a couple of initiatives that are in the pipeline that would help to facilitate this, but of course we have to start small. Rome wasn't built in a day, so we're taking it little by little, helping more people familiarize themselves and buy into this vision, because I define community as people plus purpose, right? So when you have something you're chasing, you bring people who believe in that, and all of a sudden you have a very powerful community. So that is essentially what Yabacon is set up to do. And yeah, that's why we exist. That's who we are. We're a tech community that wants to inspire African solutions to global problems.
Yeah, so how do people join this community today?
Okay, good question. We have a Discord platform. I think it's called a server, right? Okay. So Discord server. So we have a Discord server. That server is supposed to be the hub, for tech discussions, community updates, whatever is happening. That's just the easiest way to be a part of the community, interact with other people. And I like it because when you look at the tech ecosystem today, you see a lot of successful people. You notice that they know themselves. They actually know themselves. They have these very strong networks. So I think that's why a lot of people join communities, because they want to build networks, And it's very interesting to see, you bring different people who don't know themselves from anywhere, and all of a sudden, because of something that is shared belief or goal, they start interacting with themselves, they get fantastic ideas, and they're like, hey, let's do this together, right? So, and you start to see these kind of conversations come up, and it's really inspiring. So if you want to be part of the Yabacon community, you have to be on our Discord server. I just like calling it Discord platform because it's easier to say. So yeah, that's it. But of course, we are also on all the major social media platforms, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and of course, YouTube. So you follow us on all those platforms, you're a part of our Discord platform or server, whichever. Yeah, then you're an authentic Yabacon member.
But I want to understand that parallel between Arsenal and your career